We want to welcome everybody to the Horizontal Conversations podcast, and we are so blessed to have Elisa Magana, aka EC Stilson. She is a very published writer, author, and in addition to that, has all sorts of other things going on, some of which has come from the fact, Elisa, that you have been diagnosed with terminal cancer, melanoma, and that is spread, unfortunately, throughout much of your body. And dealing with that and what the doctors tell you and how that makes a person feel, and to be given some sort of a sentence, and told that your life is finite. And even though we all know that our lives are finite, but to have that sort of immediacy, and so adding that to your mix, and you writing about all of these things, talking about your life and your experience for many years, not with cancer, but just your whole life. And a lot of what you've written about is autobiographical. So many books that you've written. I'm just kind of talking all over the place here. You have lots of books on Amazon. You have, one, not in any particular order. One of your latest books, I think, is Ring the Bell. I know you're working on another book right now. You've mentioned to your fans, to your viewers, to your listeners. You've written 2 more years. You've written a book called Homeless in Hawaii, The Golden Sky, and just on and on. There's so many books and different topics that you've written about. Also, one, How to Avoid Having Sex. That sounds a little racy there, but
and that marriage ended in divorce, if you can believe it.
I do. I believe it. But I want to just first start out that your story, how I intersect with it, is really remarkable from my point of view, because we're just minding my own business, not really poised to be talking to anybody out of the ordinary. Was having a conversation with a couple friends on a Shabbat afternoon, and you pulled up with your mother. I think it was a red truck. Is that right?
Yep.
And I was wondering, it was a Shabbat afternoon, and we had spent a long time in synagogue. We were praying and then eating, and then afterwards we had a discussion that went on, and this is probably 2:30 in the afternoon. And my friend Yair, who's now a friend of the podcast, was visiting at the time, and he was there, and also Rabbi Yosef Lopez, who is also part of one of our guests on the show. He was there. And we were just schmoozing, and all out of nowhere, you and your mother pulled up, and I thought, oh my gosh, are these people that are going to harm us? What's going on? Are these anti-Semites? Are they? It's out of the ordinary for somebody to, kind of drive into the synagogue parking lot at that time. And do you want to tell us about how do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. So basically, when I first got sick, really sick, in 2020, when it had progressed to stage 4, they had different clergymen who could come and talk to me. And that was when I really started thinking, I'm very interested in Judaism. Just it has just always kind of, I don't know, something very special about it. And so my journey through that has been kind of something else. But my parents live in Tucson, and I told them I wanted to visit a synagogue there. So we looked up all these different places, and we had planned on going earlier that day. And it was just kind of a God thing, to be honest. We ended up going there later, and my parents are extremely, extremely evangelical Christian. And they're still so supportive of my journey through this, just knowing what it's like for me to face my mortality and feel like I need to have a very close connection with God in the way that I feel that, And anyway, yeah, so my mom and dad brought me there. My dad stayed in the truck, and I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, there are people here. There are real people in front of the synagogue. And just so excited to meet who was ever there, and just ask what your lives are like, what your journey has been, and kind of get a little bit of that from you guys. And then just to hear you pray for me, to sing for me, it was just a very beautiful thing, you know.
Well,
And then of course I wrote the experience and wrote that it was Yosef who had who sang for me,
and
but
we
I
knew that
fixed
wasn't true because we heard Yosef sing. He sings beautifully, but I I knew it wasn't he who did that. But anyhow, yeah, you did. You wrote about the experience in your book, Ring the Bell, and we appreciate that. And it was very touching to read about it. But it was kind of scary when we met you because I thought we were going to be scammed in some way, to be quite honest. And you were like, "Oh, I'm here. Is there a service?" And we said, You missed the service. It was in the morning, you know. But and then when your mother said, "Can you pray for her? She has cancer," and you showed me the scar, and I realized this is real. And you told your story, and immediately I went ahead that night and found you on Facebook, and kind of friended you and reached out to you, and we've talked many times since then, and it's been a pleasure to read your books. I'm slowly reading your books, and to learn your story. Your story is remarkable. I mean, you growing up in a Christian family in Salt Lake City among Mormons. That's interesting enough from a religious point of view already, but just those formative years and the things that you experienced and that you endured, and there's even an exorcism that took place in those early years, which is like, I didn't even know that still existed. As
yeah.
certainly not outside the Catholic Church. I was really astonished to hear that evangelicals were doing exorcisms. When was that, in the early 2000s, and then in the
Yeah,
nine?
so I was 17. It would have been, gosh, about in 2000 or 99, right around there. The crazy thing is, I wrote about that and I've shared some videos on Facebook, TikTok, things. I've actually had other people reach out to me and say they also had exorcisms around that same time. And I know I had watched a show recently about some things that were going on in the 80s and how America as a whole kind of had this fear of the satanic things. And you had things, you know, you had all these movies coming out. And I don't know if that could be part of it that kind of flooded into these very Pentecostal evangelical churches. I'm not for sure, but it was really interesting to have people reach out and say they've been through this too. It's kind of healing for me, and I think healing for them, just to know that we weren't alone, because I felt for so many years that there was something really wrong with me. You know, is there something evil with me? Why did these people feel like they needed to do an exorcism? And what was so out of the norm with me, that that was something that had to happen. But then to see these other people, a couple of them I know really well. I knew when I was in high school, they were just really good, meek kids. So it was very just, I think I was able to move on from that, which was a really nice feeling. And that's the strange thing with facing cancer and my mortality. If this does take me out, I think I've been able to come to peace with a lot of things that maybe would have stayed with me for decades, if not my whole life.
How has how has dealing with facing terminal cancer informed those experiences that you had years ago? How explain that for our listeners? What do you mean that now that you've been given this diagnosis, how does that inform these things that happened to you in your formative years?
So I think that I really wanted to come to peace with things, issues that I didn't even know that I had been dealing with, guilt, regret. Those are two huge things that I've had to deal with, and I still deal with, honestly. You've helped me with some of those things, which has been such a gift. I can't even express truly. But not just things that I've been dealing with, but other people have reached out to me and said that they felt bad about things that happened in the past, and they've asked me to forgive them, things that I didn't even think were a big deal. And I've just been able to say, you know, I I don't even need to forgive you. It wasn't a problem in the first place. But if you need me to say that I forgive you, I mean, I forgave you before it happened. And so that's been pretty incredible just to see all of that come together. And I just wish that I would have lived my life like this before, and before I got sick, and just been so aware. I've lived 2 years longer than doctors expected. And I keep wondering if some point they're going to come up with a cure and I'm just going to shock everybody and beat this. That would be so awesome. But whether I do or not, I'm just so grateful that I found this new way of really embracing the present because everybody says live in the present. And I really thought I was, but I think I was also carrying all of this baggage with me. It's like enjoying this hike, but you're carrying this 100, 200 pound backpack, just feeling like you're barely making it up the hill. There are so many things I just left behind because I don't have the ability to carry them right now with everything else emotionally and even physically. And so just leaving those things behind and seeing what really matters. And that's making a positive difference for the people I love. And it's really just come down to that.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. In a way, I wish we could all have that perspective without having to be given that sentence or that diagnosis so that everybody could put their life into a better perspective, because it seems like so many people are holding on to things that in the scheme don't really matter that much. It's not, when we have a different perspective, it turns everything upside down. How, how did have your travels and music come into play, and especially at these difficult times, your different experiences with different people, and whether it's playing violin or piano, or just tell us about music.
Music has been so healing. And even, in 2020, I had asked my husband, could he please go get my violin and bring it to the hospital room? And there was a guitarist, this really sweet woman. She would come around to the rooms and she would do music therapy. And I could not wait. Here, I just had surgery on my back and I felt good enough that I could finally sit up. And I was waiting for her. I had my violin and I thought, this woman's going to come in to play for me and I'm just going to jam with her. And she's going to be so shocked. And I did. I shocked her. And it was so fun, though, just thinking there are all these moments where I hope that I'm making good memories for myself. But more importantly, I just hope that I'm doing things that other people will remember too. Because that's one of the things is I want to be remembered. I want to be remembered well and I want to make a positive difference on people, in their lives. And so that's what the music has been for me, just really healing. But it's also kind of like that string to God that I feel like connects me. And when I play and really close my eyes and get into it, it just seems like I just feel like I know that I'm his, right? It's just this perfect connection that no matter all the bad things I've done, all the things I've done wrong, that God is there and he loves me.
Thank you for listening to the Horizontal Conversations podcast, brought to you by Horizontal Media. If you like what you hear, please rate us and spread the word. The best way to help support us is by becoming a member through the link to the Horizontal Media Patreon website. You can find that link in the show notes.
Talking about your connection with the divine, with God, how has that changed, or has it changed over time? And your interest in Torah and in Judaism, coming from a Christian background, tell us more about that.
So I feel like even since I was a little girl, I was just drawn to reading different Torah portions and, what we called the Old Testament. That was the part of the Bible that I loved to read. And then strange, even from the time I was little, I remember the first song that I played for a group of people. It was in Hebrew. It was a Hebrew song. It was El Shaddai. That was what I picked. I named my cat. You pronounce it differently, so you've got to help me here. But Joy, Simcha, right? How do you pronounce it?
Simcha.
Okay, I can't do the chutzpah yet. But yeah, I just feel like I've always had this very strong connection with that and didn't quite know why. And it's been really strange because I was terrified to tell my family and my friends, all of these people I've known my entire life, that I would no longer be Christian and I wanted to convert to Judaism. And that was terrifying because I thought my family's going to disown me. People aren't going to want to be friends with me. And granted, I have had some people who have said they can't talk to me anymore. And that's okay because I think at this point in my life, I just need to live to be my true self and what resonates with me, because I've just noticed every day as I'm reading these different Torah portions and really just feeling like I'm getting closer to God, that I feel better about what's happening in my life. And I almost wonder if I read that book when bad things happen to good people. Now I know that bad and good are so subjective from the human standpoint for sure. But just reading that book and thinking, did this happen so that I could then embrace what I've always wanted and be honest with my family and my friends about what I believe? And I don't know if that's true, but I'm sure glad that that has happened for me because it's pretty liberating. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that just shocked me, there seems like there have been all of these little God winks or miracles along the way. And we were at one of the services here at our synagogue in Pocatello. And anyway, I was praying that God would be with me in life and in death. Because there's a Woody Allen quote that he doesn't want to die, where he's not scared to die, but he doesn't want to be there when it happens. And I can really relate to that. So I was praying that God would be with me in life and in death, the actual act of dying. Because with all the things I've been through, some of the things have been incredibly painful, just horrendously hard. And thinking of if dying's worse than that, I just really don't want to be there for it. But anyway, it was a later service, and the light actually was shining through the window through the stained glass, and it actually lit up my program, and it lit up this line, and it said, God will be with us in life and in death. And I probably shouldn't have had my cell phone out during the service, but I took a picture of it. So I actually have a picture of this where it's this rainbow highlighting this spot. And there have been, what some people would call little things, but to me, that was huge because I felt like somehow God was reaching down from heaven, just saying, it's okay, I've got you.
I feel like I want to talk about that in a general sense because I know this is one of the Daniel and I discussed this. It's kind of in the realm of miracles versus magical thinking, and I would argue that when people are tuned in a certain way, they notice things a little differently, and we can argue whether it's real or not real, or whether it's just a happenstance. But it seems like when people want to connect with God in a certain way, then they're receptive to things and they see things. Maybe it's just that they see things differently, and maybe ultimately that's just what a person needs emotionally and psychologically at that point in their lives. And other people can look at it and say, and it's not some sort of strange phenomenon. That's just, you can explain that naturally through science, what is happening there. Of course, the in that case, the light coming in through the window and it's reflecting in a certain way could happen all the time. But for you, you're ascribing meaning to that. I'm wondering if you're tuned in. Do you notice being tuned in differently now than you were before, or have you always been tuned in this way, kind of like open to seemingly miraculous experiences?
I think I've been pretty tuned in with different things, especially, I had a little baby who passed away, and I feel like he's left me these little signs that he's out there somewhere, he's okay. But I feel like since my journey with Judaism, honestly, I feel like I've been seeing more of these signs where I would think that it's from my creator, that I feel like it's more from God than these other signs. They just kind of seemed as in like how we're all connected, right? But some of these things recently, especially since I've been sick and since I've been studying more and just, I guess, trying to um, just nourish that relationship with God, I feel like maybe more of the signs have been closer with that. And just also just that peaceful feeling of that at some point, I hope anyway, that I will go back to be with God.
Yeah, that's something that you definitely need to know, to feel, especially at times like this. You're really an inspiration. I've got to say, the way that you are, you're very particular about the way that you do things and that you share with people, whether it's even putting on makeup and kind of putting yourself together so that you can feel the way that you feel, bring some normality to your life, some routine to your life. And recently you've talked about the pain pump that you've had, installed so that you don't have to be in excruciating pain in your body.
Yeah.
You want to speak to those? Speak to that.
Sure. Yeah. So about a week and a half ago, I got the pain pump installed. It's probably about the size of like a cat food dish, I would say. I think it weighs about 3 pounds. But yeah, so they just had to the incision, I think it's like 4 or 5 inches on the front and then about an inch on my spine. But it's they just put this device in there. It has the medication, and then there's a catheter that goes around to my back and it goes from my T7 to my L2, L3, that area. And it just slowly drips the medication in. And that's the most painful spot because of where the cancer has eaten away at my spine is that area and then my pelvis and my hips. And so the medication just goes and helps me. And I cannot believe how much pain I was in. I think because I've been sick for so long that I had just kind of acclimated to it. And now having this pain pump, I can't believe how much better I feel. And there's still, there's still some pain. They can't get rid of all of it. But I mean, even a little improvement would have been huge to me. And this is a big improvement. So I feel like I have a new lease on life. I asked my doctor, I said, can I have a glass of wine every now and then? Can I go to the hot pools and can I go bowling? And she said, in 6 weeks, you can do all those things. And I just feel like I got my whole life back. So my husband said that sounds kind of like trailer parkish, but that's okay. If that's what I want to do, if it's wine, hot pools, and bowling, I'm set. So
It's the little things. It's the
it's
little thing.
things. And my husband was just teasing me, but you guys know it's funny when you think of the things that you miss, the things that are really fun, and then you don't have those anymore. You just sure appreciate everything.
Well, it's really interesting for me to get to know you through this simple exchange of words with Avi. And of course, I knew a little bit about you before the interview started. And I'm really, like Avi pointed out, it's inspiring to hear you talk about these little things. And what strikes me particularly as interesting is that it's even smaller than that. It's the words, it's the dialogue and the exchange of ideas that's really miraculous. It's not magical. It's a real miracle that we have life, that we have intellect, we have each other, we have God, and we have this format to speak, to make sounds through physics and vibration, which we transfer to one another. And I'm really moved by the idea that you write, that you go through these experiences that inspire you to share ideas with people, not only now like this with it through dialogue and speaking, but through through time, when you write something and you publish something, this can be received generations away. A few years ago, I read something written in the early 20th century, and it felt like it was speaking directly to me from across 100 years.
Wow.
So, what inspires you to write, and how do you go about putting these ideas down? What's your process like?
So, the first book that I wrote is called The Golden Sky, and it's about my little baby who passed away. He was born early, he had birth defects, and he only lived for 2.5 months, and then we had to take him off of life support. But I think the only way that I could really cope through that was music. And then also I would just write. I mean, I remember writing on the back of bills, writing on the back of, anything I could find at the hospital at the time, or napkins. And it wasn't until I was about 26. So he must have been gone for about 6 or 7 years. And I had this big box of all these different things that I'd written on, just started reading them. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is helping me heal, because I could see all of the little, the God winks, like I was saying, or the wonders, just kind of showing that I think he was meant to have a very short life for some reason, but it was unreal. All of these little things that, like I said, he was kind of showing me he was okay. And so after that book, I just kept writing, and it just helped me through everything that I was going through. And whether I would just write for a half an hour a morning or an hour a morning, it's amazing how quickly a book will come together. An average novel is about 60,000 words. That's kind of the baseline for where they want it to be with the publishing industry. But if you think that a chapter, if you every chapter you write is 1,000 words, you'll need 60 chapters, right? So if you take 3 days to write a chapter, if you're writing an hour a day or something like that, you can figure out it's not very long until you have a book. And the hardest part is getting it down and then just being dedicated to edit it. But I think anybody can write a book, and they can, my last two books, I actually used a lot of talk to text, because whether I've been getting infusions or getting surgeries or stuck in the ER or whatever it is, I have my phone there and I can just talk to text and send myself all the words. And yeah, it is amazing with technology, all of the things that are at our fingertips. And yeah, it's such a gift. And I don't think everybody totally realizes all the time how lucky we are, really. But
And with regards to the music you played, did you start studying music as a child, or tell me a little bit about your connection with music? Because I'm a musician, and
oh,
music is really what brought me and Avi together to begin with.
that's awesome. So Daniel, what do you play?
Well, I'm a multi-instrumentalist. I mostly play piano, but I play guitar, and I love to sing, and I love songs, and I love the words of songs. So I love Bob Dylan. So
Oh,
that's a whole other podcast.
We're gonna
that's
have
awesome.
we're
You're
gonna
one of
go
the
into
good ones.
we're gonna go into recovery on that one. Recovery mode.
Yeah.
Well, then I'll go into recovery too. I'm with Daniel. Uh, but yeah, so my mom is a drummer. She's amazing. She's pretty incredible. She actually had a chance to go out with one of the monkeys, which is hilarious. And then she turned him down because it would have been a 2-hour drive. And I'm always saying, Mom, that would have been the coolest story. But so a bunch of people in my family are musicians. My brother plays a guitar, my sister plays the piano and the flute. And so when I was 5, my sister started giving me piano lessons. And then when I was 6, I started taking the violin. And so I can play different instruments, but the ones that I'm decent at are the violin and the piano. But
Do you play a
yeah,
fiddle style violin?
yeah, I play the fiddle, and I learned classical. I took the Suzuki method,
Mm-hmm.
but I really like fiddling, and I love Celtic music. So, and they've actually let me play over at our synagogue here. She is just, our rabbi is the most incredible guitarist and singer. She's amazing. And so she's let me bring my violin over there and just Yeah, she's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so in some way, music is a language, and it expresses this whole thing that I'm sort of, I don't know, like vaguely imagining about dialogue and words, and it brings people together through a medium of abstract communication. And I think I find it really beautiful that you're engaged in communicating. I know, everyone goes through suffering on some level, large or small. And a lot of us tend to clam up and shut down communication in the face of hardship. So, is there something in particular that motivates you to communicate, to be willing to talk to us on a podcast, to play your fiddle? Is there something in particular, or is it just?
Well, you guys are amazing, number one. So of course I want to be here, but also just communicating in general. I think it makes me feel like I still have a purpose. There's still a reason for me to be here, because it seems like I've had so many moments where I could have died and maybe even should have died, but you just feel yourself thinking, I've got to get through this. I have to keep going. And, brain radiation. I almost couldn't do brain radiation. My husband really got me through that. But if I wouldn't have done brain radiation, I wouldn't be here. And it was hard because they put a face cage over your face and they screw it to the table. And so you can't move. And it was just so scary for me. I didn't think I could get through that. But I think it's all of these things of feeling like you have a purpose, thinking, okay, maybe at some point, if I'm not here anymore, my kids will hear this and it'll help them feel like they still have that connection. But to go back to what you said about music, we had this really kind of incredible experience. So I had only been sick for, it must have been about a year and a half. And a bunch of my friends from high school and some fellow cancer patients who I met at the cancer center and different things, they gave us some money so that we could take the whole family to Italy. That was my biggest bucket list item. We knew it would be a really frugal trip. And we actually slept quite a bit on the train and just did what we could so we could get by. But we didn't realize that in Italy, you have to pay €1 every time you use the bathroom. And so we missed one of the trains. Mike said, okay, I've got to go get these tickets fixed. You stay here with the kids. And I was in my wheelchair. I can't walk, incredibly far. There was no way I could walk all these distances across Italy. Anyway, so Mike's trying to go get these tickets. And the kids, of course, all four of the kids had to use the bathroom. And we had no money on us. But I had my violin. And so I said, I'm taking out my violin and I'm going to show you guys how to busk. So here, all these people were around us. They couldn't speak English and they're giving us euros. And I ended up making enough that the kids were able to use the bathroom. And our son, who's 16, he has still said this is one of his greatest memories with me, is it was like, we're in a bind. Here's my violin and I'm going to busk now so we can make this money. And he had brought a little ukulele with him. So he was jamming along. It was just awesome. And later on that trip, we met two people who jammed with us. So by this time, Trey was jamming now, so passing that down to him. But one of the people didn't speak English at all. And yet here we are playing this awesome music. And I thought it was so incredible. Here he had no idea why I was in a wheelchair, what I'm going through in life, that how hard this trip was for me, because frankly, that trip was so difficult. I cannot describe in words, because I was sick. I got a fever the first night, and we just honestly, I can't believe I made it through that. But I just wanted our kids to have that memory. There's no way I could do something like that now, but I'm really glad that I did it while I could. And I just hope that everybody will, if there's something you really want to do, you just have to do it now. But back to that connection thing, it was just awesome to get to jam with these people over in Italy. And we didn't have to know each other. We didn't have to know anything. And I kind of wonder if that's what it's going to be like in the afterlife, is that I would hope anyway, that we all have this incredible connection and we're all just kind of resonating with the goodness that God has put into each of us and just feeling that excitement and wonder and just thinking, wow, each of us are so special and unique and wonderful in our own way, but it's that little spark of God that he's put in each of us. Imagine what God is like.
You know, another thing you touched on is in that story, and I appreciate you mentioning it, your relationship to your children and how important they are in this whole, especially in this chapter of your life. But all along, your children have just been front and center, I think. And that's something that Daniel and I feel very strongly about as fathers, our roles as fathers, and what are we trying to do to help with our children, to help to raise our children, to bring up another generation, and to pass the torch. And we hope that our children will, you know, surpass us in many, many different ways. Tell us and tell our listeners why being a mother is so important to you in your life, and also how do your kids fit into this whole thing, just everything.
Oh, I love my kids dearly. I mean, they are just, I feel like everything I do somehow it's relates back to them, just wanting them to have what they need. And that was why I started my videos in the first place. I just thought if they were missing me, maybe they could go watch the videos because I've lost so many people now. And if I have had voicemails from them or whatever it may be. I just remember listening to this voicemail my grandma had left about 1,000 times after she passed away. But just thinking, I want my kids to have that peace. But I think we all hope that our kids will have something better than we have and not make the mistakes that we have and all of those things. But I think, too, just to have that joy for life. I think each one of us at the center of us, we have something that just kind of keeps us going. And for me, it's like Nehemiah 8:10, the joy of the Lord is our strength. For me, that is just joy is what I want to pass on to my children, to just love every minute of life and to appreciate it and see how what a blessing it is to even be alive. I mean, that it's just mind blowing. Like Daniel was saying, when you think about it, it's absolutely mind blowing. And so many times we get lost in the mundane things of life and just forget. And I don't want my kids to ever get lost in that, and just to also live the life that they want to live, not what I might want them to do or different things. And that can be easy as a parent to get lost in. But then, especially going through this, I've thought, okay, maybe I wanted them to do this. That's not my choice. I want them to be happy with what they're doing. My oldest daughter's a tattoo artist. And at first, that was a little difficult because I thought, oh man, she went from wanting to be a math teacher to then being a tattoo artist. And just seeing how happy she is though, and how incredibly talented she is. Actually, one of the people in Italy who I jammed with from that last story, he flew out to get a tattoo from my daughter Ruby. And so he came and stayed with us for a week. And it's just unreal. But yeah, I just hope that we're making all these memories so that if I don't live as long as I would hope, that at least they can look back and we would have made so many memories that it would fill up their lifetimes.
You know that the passage that you're mentioning from Nehemiah chapter 8. And,
See, I can't do it. I
you're
can't
doing
do
it. It says, "Ve'al te'atzevu ki chedvat Hashem hi ma'uzechem." Do not be sad, for your rejoicing in the Lord is the source of your strength. Your rejoicing in the Lord is the source of your strength. How has rejoicing in our Creator, rejoicing in Hashem, given you strength, especially when you're in so much pain?
So if you look up the etymology for happy and joy, they're completely different. Happiness is something that comes and goes. Joy is constant and it stays. And if you really harness joy and find that appreciation, that gratitude for life, it doesn't really go away. I mean, life can be incredibly difficult, but if you still have that appreciation for the fact that I'm even alive, I'm even here, it's like, okay, so maybe I'll never make 45, maybe I'll never make 50, but my goodness, the fact that I even got to live this long, the fact that I got to have children and meet Mike and be on this podcast, I mean, whatever it might be, I'm just so grateful for that. And it's just that joy. It's when you really start to see how much there is to be grateful for, it's kind of hard to get down about some of these other things, because it's like, yes, I am in pain, but it's another reminder that I'm still here. And that's kind of the reason I'm fighting, is for more memories with my children, chances to be with Mike, just I think that's what it's about, is just rejoicing really in the fact that God even made me. I mean, he didn't have to do that. So,
I like that. I like it. But don't you get angry? Don't you get, when you're in so much excruciating pain, don't you get angry? And and if so, how do you deal with that?
yeah, so I don't know if I haven't reached the stage of grief where I've gotten really angry for myself yet, because I think that I've been so much feeling guilt about things that I've done wrong, that I know that God isn't punishing me, but I feel like I mentally I'm having a tough time with that it's like, okay, maybe there's a reason that I deserve this. But what I've had a really hard time getting angry about is Mike and our kids, they don't deserve this. So that's been difficult. Just thinking, okay, I can't shield them from this. And as a parent, I mean, you guys know, as dads, you want to protect your kids from everything. But this is something that's just so drastically wrong. I mean, I'm even at a stage where I can't hide this from my kids. Like they were noticing before I even had to go in 2020. It's like, mom isn't walking normal. What's going on with mom? Why is mom tired all the time? So I couldn't have even hidden this from them. And that's difficult sometimes, because I just think, why are they going through this? Why is something with me? Why does it have to affect them? And that is frustrating. But I think trying to deal with that in a positive way, because I don't know, people have even said that I'm like Miss Toxic Positivity, but I am just positive. I think the best thing for me to do is just say, I'm going to do the very best that I can, and I will always try. And when I can't keep trying anymore, then I'll know that it's my time to go. But until then, I'm just going to do my very best and have peace with the fact that I still got up. I still tried to look normal for my kids. I've had people make fun of me, say, "Oh, why are you putting your makeup on? You're wasting your energy." I'm putting makeup on so my kids don't worry about me. So they feel like I'm still in a normal place like I was before I got sick. So people can sit there and judge and say, "Oh, somebody's so superficial," or we know what they're going through or what's going on. They have no idea until they've been through it. And even then, everybody's situation is so different. And I think we kind of have to trust that everybody truly is just doing the best that they can. Maybe I'm naive, but that's what I hope.
Clearly, you are doing the best that you can, and we do pray that the rest of us will be inspired by that.
How old is your youngest child?
So she's 14 now, and she was originally 8 when I got my first diagnosis. The cancer started as stage 2B, and then she was 10 when they told me it was terminal. So,
And I imagine, I mean, aside from showing your strength and showing that you keep trying, that you also communicate with your kids about your struggles,
yeah,
and give them a true insight into the breadth of reality here.
yeah, yeah,
That must be very challenging. But I think on the toxic positivity end, it's a gift to have a parent who is willing to be real and truly show what they're going through, and it gives these lucky young people insight into how life really looks and how this blessing really is a challenging undertaking for all of us. I mean, I can't imagine, like you said, unless you go through it, you can't imagine what it's like to deal with these challenges. But we all are aware of our own mortality, right? I mean, we all know that we're going to die. And when, we have no idea. How, we have no idea. It comes to mind the Yom Kippur liturgy, who by fire, who by water. We have no idea. And so it's something that I try to abstractly convey to my kids, that this knowledge leads to that sort of high valuation of the moment, and high valuation of the miracle that we are created. And yeah, none of us, God doesn't have to sustain any of us, and it's really a miraculous gift that we have this system where we breathe air and we eat food, and our bodies do this thing for however long a period. So I guess I'm just sort of unraveling what this might be like for your children, and considering that this is something that we all need to convey to our kids. And
Yeah, I think so. I really appreciate what you said there, because there are days when I think, should I have tried to keep this from them longer? Did I tell them too early? Should I be as honest as I am? Just before I got my surgery, we were nervous because in a surgery that I had quite a while ago, they had to do a blood transfusion and I could have died. It was just a really difficult surgery. And anyway, so before this, I have been writing blog posts that they will publish in 2032. And so I thought, okay, if I've passed away by that point, which unless they come up with a cure, then I will probably die at
what do
that
you mean?
before.
You're like delaying the publishing deliberately?
Yeah, yeah,
That's a
yeah. And there are little
cool
notes.
idea.
Yeah, so little notes like, my oldest
Yeah.
Ruby, Sky, Trey, or Indy, or Mike, or whoever it is, little letters to them. And
Wow.
so they know the day that those will publish. So in case something does happen. And I was just working on those the other day. And it's quite an undertaking because I'm trying to do a whole year of these. And so my youngest, Indy, she saw that I was working on this. And I looked over, she was eating breakfast and she was crying. And I just thought, this is so hard because I don't want to see my kids going through this. But at the same time, they need to know if something happens. I mean, I don't know, maybe Mike just needs to be the one to know. But I still feel like at the same time, I'm showing them through example how much I love them.
And that
That's the one thing that I think is, it feels like it's just stronger than time, is the love of a parent.
for sure.
You just can't take it away.
But you also, that even that the grieving, really the grieving starts just with this knowledge, and we do pray that they will come up with new ways to new treatments, and that your life can be extended big time. And if not, the fact that that your children are able to go through some of the emotions while you're still alive, and that you can give some comfort to them, it's really like that's going to happen. And that maybe it's better to have that start to happen when you're still there, and that you can be a part of the conversation on that.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like the little boy who called wolf because here I was supposed to die 2 years ago, and it's like the Energizer Bunny, they just can't kill me or something. I don't know.
Thank God.
Yeah, it's like I just keep going. But I do wonder if they are going to find something. It's kind of amazing, but since August, the cancer hasn't grown. And we've always seen little bits of growth. I mean, even if it's just a millimeter, it seems like the cancer has just always grown a little bit. There's still a mass in my brain that they're really concerned about. And, that in August, my L2, that tumor started growing a little bit. But I mean, the cancer hasn't grown since August. And so it's kind of amazing.
I think the amazing part is, and this is something that they talk about in medicine, outlook and determination have a lot to do with health and with healing. And so I feel like if you from the outset just gave up, we would not be having this conversation right now. Like you said, there were many opportunities where you could have lost your life, where even with that blood transfusion. And because you have such a strong will to live, and because you're so productive and you're making the most. And I know that sometimes you have days that are very difficult, and you're not able to do the things you want to do, but you're striving to do and to achieve and to accomplish and to leave a legacy and to make an imprint, make an impact. I think because of those things, you're doing some of the things that medicine can't do.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was laughing because my doctor said he thinks it's because I'm so positive, and I said I'm so stubborn. Here's this thing that all these people told me was such a bad thing, and I think it's the reason I'm alive.
Tell something in a total different area. I'm wondering what you can tell our listeners. So put aside your illness. You're in a journey toward Torah, toward Judaism. And what is one of the most fascinating things that you've learned about Judaism so far?
I think the first thing that just shocked me, which I've told several Jews about this, and I don't think they think that this is so fantastic because so many of you have just grown up believing this. But for me, on the outside, being raised Christian, this was just mind-boggling. And a lot of Christians I've spoken with have been really amazed too. But when you pray for forgiveness, to ask God for sins against God, but if you've sinned against a person, to ask them for forgiveness. And see, I mean, you guys know this, but in Christianity, you pray for God to forgive you for everything. I mean, yes, you can go ask the person, but you don't have to. It's all about God forgiving you. And so, yeah, it's a lot harder when you have to go up to that person and say, hey, I said something really crappy about you. Can you forgive me? Because you sure don't want to do it again. And then you're waiting all year for it to come around because then you have to go apologize to them. And it's just, that was really mind blowing to me at first, just thinking, okay, but I think there are things like that with Judaism that have just kind of helped me change my life really, but then live more authentically in the way that I wanted to. And yeah, so that I could get rid of some of those weights and just live a lighter life and really have that ability and freedom to fight a little bit more, to live longer. So
that's very inspirational. It's very inspirational. We hope we do, and the way that we talk about forgiveness and that whole process, we call it teshuvah, as you know, which means to return. And so there's a lot of returning to who we really can be, to what we're really trying to, the attachment, the connection that we're trying to have with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, with the Holy One, and to each other, and to really be who we want to be the kind of people that we want to be the kind of Jews that we want to be. It's impactful, it's emblematic, it's just amazing to know. And we forget that a lot of Jewish people forget that God is a forgiving God. That's one thing that the Christians, it's front and center in Christianity. But I mean, God gave us this system to fix things, when we have errors, when we have mistakes, when we sin. How can we return? How can we do better? And it's a process. It's a beautiful process.
It's been nice to let go of that idea of original sin as well, and just saying, okay, we're all born with these problems, these issues, and it's all right. And I'm just going to do, like I said earlier, the best that I can. Because I think before, especially with the exorcism, I was just thinking, gosh, there's just something so wrong with me. How in the heck am I going to feel better about this? Like, I don't feel like I connect with Jesus. I don't believe in Jesus. And all of a sudden, it was like Jesus was this barrier blocking me from God, because people kept saying, well, you can't have a relationship with God without Jesus. But I did feel like I had that relationship. And so it just didn't make sense to me. So to kind of let go of all of that and just say, God made me, He loves me the way I am. Yes, He wants me to do better, but I'm trying and He knows that. So that was another really powerful thing for me. And the other thing that was so good, I was sitting one day and the rabbi came up to me and she just started talking about how everybody has something to offer or something good that they can give. And at that point, just with cancer and everything, I thought, what can I possibly give? And that was really motivating for me to think, I have something to give. I don't know what in the heck it is, but
Well, look at what
that
you're
was kind
doing.
of
Look at what you're doing. You're talking to people through all these different social media realms. You're writing, you're sharing your words, your books, your wisdom, your experiences. You're already doing that. What do you mean? This, of course, that's what you're doing, Elisa.
Thank you. I think that was about the time that I started doing the videos, just thinking, okay, I don't know what this is worth, but if I'm going to try to give something, because we all want to give something, that maybe that's what I can give right now. I can't give somebody $1 million, but I can make a video.
That's beautiful.
So at least it's something, and then just hoping that God knows that too.
We want to thank you for spending this precious time with us. And we hope that many, many people will listen to it, be inspired, and also want to read your books and pay attention to all of the impact that you've been making. It's just like I said, it's an honor for us. It's a privilege, and we will keep you in our prayers. And we do pray that the doctors are guided and the nurses are guided and all the researchers are guided to come up with cures for your cancer and for so many of the health challenges that we see around us, because we have the ability, God gives us the ability to come up with cures and with solutions to these problems and so many others. And so we will keep you in our prayers, and we hope that you'll keep us in your prayers as well.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you. And you don't mind praying for my husband and my kids too.
Absolutely.
They're the ones who I'm worried about. But
I think
yeah, well, thank you.
they're in our prayers as well. And may God just continue to shine brightness and blessings on you for many more years to come in better and better health. Amen. Amen.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Horizontal Conversations podcast, and we look forward to talking to you again soon. Thank you for listening to the Horizontal Conversations podcast, brought to you by Horizontal Media. If you like what you hear, please rate us and spread the word. The best way to help support us is by becoming a member through the link to the Horizontal Media Patreon website. You can find that link in the show notes.